Howdy, everybody. My name is Alex Burgess, and today I'll be walking you through a hazard assessment of the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Now, when people hear Fairbanks, they usually picture the northern lights, frigid winters, and maybe even moose wandering across the highway. What they don't usually think about are the hidden risks, the hazards that come with living in this unique part of Alaska. And here's the truth. Hazards aren't just random acts of nature, they're events that meet people where they live, work, and travel. The way we understand and prioritize them determines how safe or unsafe our communities will be. That's what this presentation is about. It's not just identifying the hazards, but ranking them so our community can be resilient. So let's set the stage. The Fairbanks North Star Borough is in the interior of Alaska, far from the coast, but still very much tied to nature. Around 100,000 people call this place home, with about a third of them living in Fairbanks itself. The city of Fairbanks being right here, and the city of North Pole being right over here, the two major cities within the borough. Our climate is a subarctic continental, which means we have anywhere from minus 40 degrees in the winter and then plus 90 degrees in the summer. That's a swing of over 130 degrees. Those kind of extremes are not just uncomfortable, they affect infrastructure, energy demands, and even emergency planning. The two major rivers that run through this borough include the Chena and the Tana. Both are vital for the ecosystem, but also both of them create real world or real flood risk. The forests surrounding us include spruce, birch, and aspen. They aren't just scenarios, they're also fuel for wildfires. And underneath it all is permafrost, a discontinuous, unstable, and thawing faster than ever that also makes construction and long-term planning complicated. And then finally, our economy is powered by our military bases, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and our resource industries. Each of those sectors has its own vulnerabilities when hazard strikes. Here's the big question. Why do we prioritize hazards? The short answer, resources are limited. No community, no matter how wealthy, can prepare equally for every possible disaster. Instead, we focus on the hazards that are most probable and most damaging. By doing so, we can reduce the risk by targeting the threats that actually happen here, shape mitigation planning, things like building codes, zoning, and where we allow houses to expand. It also supports emergency management, training, equipment, and the public education campaigns all depend on this prioritization. And then there's the climate change factor. Hazards aren't static, they're ever changing. Wildfires are burning hotter, floods are more unpredictable, and winters are shifting in ways that make our planning more complicated. So, prioritization isn't a one time process, it's ever ongoing. Our first hazard is one everyone here knows well, extreme cold. We live with it every year, but familiarity doesn't make it safe. Heating systems can fail, roads can ice over, people get frostbite in under 10 minutes, and here's the twist, climate change isn't eliminating extreme cold, but altering it. The interior has warmed about 3.2 degrees Fahrenheit over the last 50 years. That might sound small, but in practice, it means more freezing and thawing cycles. Road buckles, water mains burst, and even emergency services get stretched thin. Wildfires are another consistent threat. The names of the past fires, Boulder Creek, Agia Creek, Bozani Creek, are etched into our local memory. These fires can consume thousands of acres, shut down roads, and fill the air with smoke so thick schools have to close. And we all ask the question, why the increase of these forest fires? Well, summers are longer, forests are drier, and the rainfall is less reliable. In other words, the fire season isn't just longer, it's more dangerous. And with Fairbanks being surrounded by forests, we're always in the crosshair of that. Flooding might not grab headlines like wildfires, but it's just as serious. Heavy rains, ice jams, and rapid snowmelt are all threaten our borough. We do have floodgates, four of them to be precise, that can divert over 800 million gallons of water every hour. Now that's incredible engineering, but it doesn't eliminate the risk. The biggest concern is a climate-driven instability. The freeze and thaw patterns make ice jams unpredictable, and just one jam at the wrong time could swamp neighborhoods and overwhelm the response system. Let's talk about the permafrost thaw. Imagine building a house a road, or even a pipeline in ground that looks solid, but then the ice inside melts, suddenly that foundation isn't so solid. Buildings lean, roads crack, and pipelines warp. That's the reality of permafrost thaw. And because the borough is built on discontinuous permafrost, no neighborhood is immune. Now, earthquakes, Alaska is one of the most seismically active regions on the planet. Here in the interior, quakes don't hit as often or as hard as on the coast, but history shows we can get magnitudes of 7 or even higher. Things to think about means things to think about when an earthquake actually hits is broken utilities, damaged structures, people being cut off from power or water. Even if a quake doesn't destroy everything, the disruption is what makes it a hazard. Other hazards are less pressing but still worth noting. Heat waves and droughts feed wildfire risks. Severe windstorms occasionally knock out power. Volcanic ash from some of our volcanoes here could drift into our borough. And then through its wear, and even though it's rare, tsunamis thankfully are not the problem here this far inland. But there's still stuff that we have to plan for. So where does this leave us? The top three hazards for the Fairbanks North Star Borough are extreme cold, wildfires, and flooding. These aren't new challenges, but climate change is making each one of them worse. Our job as a community is not just respond when things go wrong, but to prepare in advance. That means prioritizing hazards, updating building codes, training emergency personnel, and educating the public. Resilience is built long before disasters strike. And in place as unique and as challenging as Fairbanks, it's the only way forward that we can prepare. Thank you for your attention. I hope this hazard assessment gave you not just information, but a perspective on what it takes to live and thrive in the interior of Alaska. Here are all my sources. Thank you so much.